So, I gotta ask you a question, Deej. Why is everyone's response to when you get your car stolen, did you lock your doors? Like, I can understand the police asking you, but everybody else is like, did you lock your doors?
Because, that stops the robber.
Like, they can't just, like, break your windows.
Or, put some kind of shivvy thingy and, wiggle it around and pop the thing open, or however it is that they unlock doors like that.
Not every car has an alarm. Apparently my car is supposed to have an alarm, but it never went off. And or if it did, smart enough to know how to turn off that alarm. The other question I got asked when I told my boss that my car was stolen, what was why? I was like, well, if I knew that answer, do you think my car would have been taken? So, for those wondering, or, that struggle with context, my car has been stolen. And now I have to wait. I don't know when exactly this one will come out, but technically I've already gone through insurance, already talked to the police, and I have to wait 2 weeks from the time that I file the report for anything to happen afterwards. So now I'm just kind of sitting in this waiting game. And when I tell people, like, well, my car is stolen, I get those questions. Why? Well, did you lock your door? Or where was it? In the parking lot of my apartment complex. Wasn't anywhere crazy. So, yeah. That's and that this comes it was during that same week where we had announced that we've been having our
10-11 week.
Huh?
10-11 week.
Yeah,
Yay.
celebration. And I just mentioned how I was having a low period and I wasn't, doing great. And so that Friday was like, oh, you think you're not doing great now?
Was just wait.
Let me further kick you in the guts. I was like, thanks, life. So, yeah, I'm not doing fantabulous. Now I'm really not doing fantabulous. So, roll intro. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Deanna. And we're
the Halfwit Sisters. Welcome back, everyone.
I feel like we should mention that we normally film on Tuesday, but it is Wednesday.
Nobody's gonna know.
I know.
We know.
I know. And there's a reason for that.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah. There's two things I want to mention before. There's a gif of Stewie from Family Guy in a straitjacket just going, and then there's also that TikTok sound that's just the Joker laughing, right? Have you seen that one? That was me yesterday after we had gotten off. Because I had a lovely release of I'm no longer having to deal with this, but also I was just about to quit this. This being the job at the hospital.
Right,
Um,
right.
I have been released from my contract. As of the day we're filming this, we still don't know our end date. We think it's probably going to be Sunday when our schedule that we currently have ends, but it could be any day this week, and we're just waiting for the official word.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I am no
Right.
longer employed.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday as we were getting our stuff all ready for the recording, how you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna quit. Should I quit? I don't know if I'm gonna quit. And I couldn't get my recording to work or it was skipping. So I was like, okay, hold on, let me start the thing. And I clicked out, like I hung up and then I came back and you were just crying. I went, what the heck
Yeah.
happened?
I got a message from one of my coworkers. I don't know if it actually happened or not. He kind of lies a lot. Um, but there was a fight at the hospital on a completely different shift than the one we work. But it was just like, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm working for a temp agency. I called my recruiter at the agency, talked to her. She's like, okay, put all of this down in an email and send it to me. And then while I was drafting that email, I get the message from our supervisor over at the hospital saying, check your emails, and then a sad face. And I go over and check my email. It's just like, we're terminating your contract.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that contract was only supposed to last like what, a month?
A month, maybe two. It's been nearly 7. So
Yeah.
it's a relief and a stress, but more of a relief
Mm-hmm.
because one, I didn't quit, so I can try to collect some unemployment for a couple weeks before I can while I find another job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I can also just like sit at home and recover from the serious mental strain that the job put on me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it put, just to let the viewers know, there was some stuff
Yeah,
going down.
yeah. There was a lot of abuse that we were facing, and with what we felt was very little support.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's over now.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, as of when this is supposed to film, I shouldn't be there anymore.
Hopefully.
Because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but yeah, it's been a fun roller coaster. But I made some great friends, and I'm glad for the opportunity. But I'm also very glad that it's over.
Yeah. So.
Which is why we're recording today on Wednesday and not Tuesday.
Yeah. Okay. So, episode setup. I have it written down. Oh, jeez. Excuse me. Oh, I hate when like stuff gets stuck on here.
Did you eat peanut butter again?
Oh, no, just bread. But alright, so oh, in our last episode, since we do recap it a little, yeah, like we said, we talked about we're like celebrating. Uh, I talked a little bit about my bipolar and my low episode. But what did you talk about?
I honestly don't remember.
Dot
It's
dot dot dot.
it, I usually edit the video over the weekend and
Hmm.
on like here on like yesterday or today. But I edited that video the day we recorded it
Right, because you had a weekend.
with my boyfriend.
Yeah, boyfriend.
Yeah, which is one of the topics we're going to talk about is one of the things that we did over that
On that
weekend.
weekend. Yes, so that's part of our episode set up there. Um, which is about James Bond.
Yes.
Yes, we're going to talk a little bit about James Bond. I actually recently watched Skyfall because it has one of my most favorite villains on that, and I'm probably going to have to do a quick IMDb to figure out what that is. But and then I think we'll do yours first, and then I will talk a little bit about because it's going to be kind of a mix between story and gameplay, and then how we're struggling a little with ours because our story for our game because it's a little bit more unforgivable than what you would do with a normal game. Okay, so that's our episode setup. So DJ, take it away.
So I live in New York City, and in New York we have this place called Spyscape, which is a spy museum, and it is a lot of fun. And so I went there with my boyfriend this last weekend. There you got to like find out what kind of spy you were, and there were like this like special ops game where you have to like dodge around lasers and hit all these buttons. I won against my boyfriend not once but twice, and on my second go I made top 10. I don't know if that kept through the day, but at the time it was top 10. So yeah. Um, but while we were there, they also had the 007 James Bond Spyscape exhibit, which is when I bought this beautiful work of art of the James Bond Spectre, the complete comic strip collection, which doesn't have all the comic strips in it, but it does have 4 of them in it. And we had the question of, did the movies come first or did the comic strip comes first? And that's when I'm going to give you the quick rundown of James Bond and media. So James Bond started off as a novel, the first book being Casino Royale by British author, journalist, and former naval intelligence officer Ian Fleming. Ian Fleming published that first book in 1953, and he went on to write 12 more novels, 2 more collections of short stories. After his death, there were about 10 more writers who wrote various Bond novels, novelizations, short stories, and biographies over the years. So basically, we've had books and short stories and novelizations and all of these from 1953 to 2008. Most notably of these other authors is John Gardner, who wrote 14 novels, 2 novelizations, and James Benson, who wrote 6 novels, 3 novelizations, and 3 short stories. And I had to look this up because I was confused on why they were distinguishing a novel versus a novelization. The novel is purely fiction. A novelization is a novel based on facts. So, interesting tidbit there. Then came the comic strip in 1958. And it went from 1958 to 1983 in the Daily Express. There were 52 titles done. So I have 4 of them in this book, but there are another 40-some comic strips. The thing that I find kind of amusing about this is Fleming commissioned a sketch to be like, this is what I thought Bond looked like. And I'll put the image here. But the illustrator felt it was outdated and too pre-war, so he gave Bond a more rugged and masculine appearance, which is this one. Then came the movies. There have been movies since 1962 to next year, when another film is supposed to be slated. There have been 25 Eon Production films, which Eon Production holds the film adaptation rights to the Bond films. and 2 non-Eon, one being a spoof and one being one being a spoof called Casino Royale, and one where Sean Connery reprises his role 12 years after his last film as Bond. There have been a total of 7 Bond actors, Sean Connery and Roger Moore being tied for the most Bond films, which was kind of cool. And then this will help lead into your segment, Becca, is there have also been 27 video games. The first being Shaken But Not Stirred, a text-based adventure game, which was kind of cool to me when I learned that, because we're doing a video-based game that's solely based on the acting and the story, rather than like something like the predominantly James Bond games are shooter games. So it's like kind of interesting that their first game is kind of similar to what we were trying to do. But that is James Bond over the various mediums of entertainment that people consume. And that I wanted to learn all that because I got this book and it's so pretty, and I use this book as inspiration and motivation for the storyboards that I was doing this week, which I finished all the ones that we have approved and you've pulled out of the master list. So, yeah. But going to that museum and seeing all of that gave me a lot of inspiration for hopefully what we can, and also my boyfriend some inspiration for maybe we can paint or build a miniature of the Belladonna hideout, and see what we can figure out there and do.
Yes. Yes. So I heard all of that. The whole reason why I'm like clicking around a lot in my side, and the reason why I was staying muted was because I was doing like a lot of typing and clicking, and I didn't want to like mess up your stuff. One of the other reasons why I really like that you took time to go and learn a lot about Bond is because Bond is kind of one of the frameworks that I'm using for some of the Belladonna stuff. And especially because we're using Agent Hollow. Agent Hollow is using that framework for Bond, right? At least the archetype of Hollow is Bond. And you can kind of see some of that in the way that Hollow talks. We have Hollow kind of be this suave, smart alecky guy who pops up every now and then. It's like, oh, I see you've fixed your footwear kind of thing. Like after Belladonna gets caught in the, what do you call it?
Catwalk.
The catwalk, right? So he's like, oh, I see you've made, and like later on when he runs, and right, he's like, oh, I see you fixed your footwear because she's no longer wearing these boots, right? So he's making appearances then. And so we're keeping his archetype kind of along the same lines of James Bond. All right. Oh, one of my favorite we've seen a lot of James Bond growing up. We've seen the different eras of James Bond, at least 3 to my knowledge. Maybe 2 for you?
2 for me, but I did go watch, after we went to Spyscape, we went and watched Dr. No, which is the first Bond movie, and we're thinking we might make that a date night type thing where we watch a Bond movie every once in a while, until we've watched all of them, which should be fun.
Right. The other thing to know, Bond is a very much Mary Sue character for men, right? Like he's the one man soldier Okay, and for a lot of guys, he's a very empowering character, right? Like that's the kind of guy a lot of people want to be. Um, one of my favorite movies, and it's more because of the villain that they have, is Skyfall. I mentioned that before. Skyfall that came out in 2012. And that's solely because of their villain, Silva. He was it wasn't just because he was like 10 steps ahead or anything like that. It was just the way that he interacted with Bond and kind of sucked you in, right? Like they have some of the first lines here that is like the first lines that he gives is like, "Hello, James. Welcome. Do you like the island?" And then he goes into like this story about rats, right? And that whole story that he talks about rats is pretty much the setup for the rest of Skyfall and how the two of them are going to be going at each other for the rest of the show. And I just love the way that they made that build happen. So it was, so and that's kind of like when I was building up Ethan, Silva was actually what I was thinking about for Ethan Ward. Now, I ended up dropping a lot of that out because I was like, well, this isn't really what we're going to be going with because Silva was more of like a one man show kind of thing, and that's not what Ethan is. So and so a lot of that is what I came to. Um, and like the thing that I also liked that you found out was like I didn't had no idea that it was books first. All right.
Yeah.
That was really interesting. Like and a lot of books.
Yeah, I didn't get an exact count of how many books and all of that there were. Um, I took from the three main authors, the original and the two that were approved by the Fleming estate. Um, those are the three authors I mentioned. Because like the biography that was written wasn't, I think it was just a guy who was really into it, but didn't get like approval from the estate, so not technically canon, as far as I know. But yeah,
Right.
starting off with the books in the 50s, the movies in the 60s, the comic strip is in the 50s, and
Hmm.
the video games in the 80s.
Right, right. And what was the one? There's one that was on the N64, GoldenEye?
So I I didn't look exactly at all of them, all the 27-ish games, but they have pretty much been on almost every single system. But I definitely I know was one of them.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a Bond movie that you really like?
Um, Honestly, that's one of the reasons I wanted to rewatch them is because I haven't really seen any of the Daniel Craig ones. Um, not since I left the house. So I really wanted to go back and kind of just start rewatching all of them. Um, and see where my favorite was. I just remembered liking the oh my God, what is his name? I looked at it the other day. The one we grew up with. Benson, I think is his last name.
Okay. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Teacher?
Yes.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah. And I'm excited to read the comic strips that I have. Um, but yeah, I was really happy to have gone in and like seen all this because again, I knew Agent Hollow was like kind of we were using the Bond archetype for it. Um, and I kind of like that the interactions between Hollow and Belladonna are just like, oh, you're a hench person. Um, where he's not rude to her or like, I mean, he pushes her in a closet at one point.
Mm-hmm.
He's not sexist towards her. She's not just like a pair of legs, or what was the Bond girl thing, a finely crafted pair of boobs type
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Which, you know, Bond girls uh, have been said to be, is a whole another. Bond has a lot of issues, but does not make it any less enjoyable to watch sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that I struggled with the most. Is that's those are the parts that I struggle with the most in Bond films. Is the sexy time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I usually just look away. I'm there for the action most of the time.
So I was reading it, and apparently, I think Doctor No is the sixth book. If I'm remembering the reading correctly, Doctor No is the sixth book, and that's when they started getting more into the Bond girl and sex part of Bond. I think the first few novels weren't as heavily in that section.
Hmm.
Um, but over the years, it just got more and more like that, which is sad because, you know, the
What?
sexualization of women.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's of the time.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I guess we'll move on to my part then. Okay. So I have not been playing Bond games. We'll say that. And I was trying to find like what you would call the type of game we're making. Because there is a name for it, but I can't find it. And honestly, it's really there's so many game types and niches out there nowadays that it's hard to keep them all straight. But I've been playing a lot of Destiny, and we were talking yesterday about that. So the thing that I liked, played Destiny 1 and now I'm playing Destiny 2. So the thing that I liked about Destiny 1 is that they didn't go very hard on you being the one or everything relied on just you. They said you're one of many guardians that are helping to protect the universe. You have a ghost that makes sure that if you die, it helps resurrect you, right? So they have they in front of you all of the things that made sense, right? The world building that made sense for why you exist in this world or in this universe at this point. And I really enjoyed it. And it was kind of like a breakthrough in multiplayer online first person shooters. Really enjoyed it. It was fun. Had great times with my friends. Then Destiny 2 comes out. Now Bungie, which are the makers who originally created Halo, they had broke away from Microsoft, went to create Destiny 1. Then we're starting to make Destiny 2 and had synced up with Activision. And I believe Activision is the one that made them kind of change the way they were doing some of their stuff. Completely changed the way Destiny 2 started and went sort of with the hero story. A hero story, you probably have heard of this at least once or twice going through school, or have definitely been exposed to who have watched Star Wars. Because Star Wars very heavily uses the hero story, which goes with you're the one, only you can save the universe. Everything else will fail if you don't save the universe, kind of thing. Suddenly, I'm taken out of the story. Why? Because I'm being given those lines as I'm standing there with 20 other people who are also being given the exact same lines of you're the one, guardian, only you can. Like, it didn't feel that way. And I know there's going to be some people that are like, well, that's not what it was trying to do. But no, that's exactly what it felt like. I can't stand when stories fall back on the, hey, on this trope of you're the one. Like, there's better ways of writing this. You're not a singular being in this universe, right? So in the first one, where they were always going guardians with the S at the end, this one they were always going guardian, no S at the end, making it very clear that there was only you who was responsible for getting things done. Only you who could make sure to defeat the bad guys. Versus the first one where you and a group of people could work together to save the universe. So yeah, I got angry at the second game because I'm very passionate about how games write story and how they work and pull you in as a player. Very passionate about it. Now here's the thing, and this is where the gameplay comes in. I will forgive a game if their gameplay is fun. And Destiny, at the time, their gameplay was kind of repetitive, so it wasn't as fun. Since then, their gameplay is a lot more interesting, and so now I ignore the story and I I have a lot more fun with the gameplay. Games nowadays, they can get away with a really lame story if the gameplay is interesting. If there are unique elements that you can, have fun with. That being said, not every game can be forgiven if it's like a first person shooter. Like, let's say if it's a military first person shooter and that's all it is, with the same duck hide mechanics, same throw bomb, throw knife, get guns mechanics, then the thing that you need to have stand out is the story, right? So those are the things. That's like the difference between like when story would be important and when gameplay would be important. If you have unique mechanics, then story isn't as, like, I feel, important for you.
That or graphics.
Graphics, well, so I don't agree. Clearly graphics can be forgiven, especially in the indie space where pixel is still kind of reigning king.
Sorry, not graphics. Art, I guess.
Graphics, art, still sort of the same thing.
But like visually, how the aesthetic of the game.
Yeah, that would still be graphics. Is that the mice in the wall?
Yes.
So, in the indie space, it's a lot of. I actually stopped playing indies for a while because I just kept seeing pixel game after pixel game after pixel game. And while they do some interesting things with pixels, like they can make it look really, really impressive, sometimes you just get tired of seeing the same kind of style, you know? Jigsaw. She's just over here. She walked in and immediately beeline towards me. So I was going, okay, so backing up again. So we're going through all of this, or I'm going through all of this. I'm paying attention to all of this. I'm like, okay, for us, our story has to be solid because we don't have gameplay. We're using YouTube's end card system to create our decision trees, essentially. Meaning at the end of each video, if you watch to the end of our videos, you know there's the two cards that come up where you can select which one you want to choose. All right, you can either select the playlist or you can select which video there is. Those end cards will change with Belladonna's thing where it'll be choices that you have. That's it. That's our gameplay. It's much more in line with something of Tall Tales, where you were given a series of choices. It's not going to be having the timer on there like Tall Tales did because that's something else. But we're going to be having those end cards that you can choose from to take you down one path or the other. That's it. That's our whole gameplay. So our story has to be much more solid. And anything that works in that same realm, like choose your own adventures or text-based games, like that's exactly what they have to do as well. Their story has to be solid. It has to grip you from the very beginning and draw you in, and every choice has to have a weight to it that that keeps you moving to the end. So I guess that's why I've slowed down a lot, because I'm really thinking about the story, because we don't have the forgivable path of having a gameplay to fall back on, like something like Destiny has.
Yeah. It's solely reliant on the story, and basically it's a little episode every, so we have to make sure that, like, visually it's interesting to look at, and it's also interesting to watch
Right.
The story progress.
Right.
And we want you to play again and pick different paths. So
And that's why on my end I've slowed down so hard, is because I'm like, okay, if I'm doing this, how do I make every single choice interesting and every outcome rewarding? None of it can just be a throwaway decision.
yeah.
And that's stressful. It's stressful. I mean, like, oh, I want to do it. But at the same time, it's like, oh man, I don't know how I'm going to be able to pull it off. Really. This is all I got going through my head right now. Just So yeah. So thinking back on like a lot of things, like there's games where I've been playing where, you know, like story's been amazing, gameplay not so much, but I've fought through the gameplay just so that I could play the story because the story was interesting. then there's been times where the story's not been interesting, but the gameplay's been really, really great. So I'll play the gameplay and just ignore the story. And what game were we playing? I was playing, I think, Gears of War 5. We were trying to skip a cutscene. A friend and I were playing Gears of War 5 and we're trying to skip this cutscene. It's 2000, and when did that game come out? 2017? 2018? It's 2018. Now it's 2020. Skippable cutscenes. Come on. It's just like,
no, you must watch the story.
How many times do I have to watch your bot get torn apart? Jeez. Yeah. Anyways. So that's one of the things I've been looking at. Okay. So normally we'd go into our last section here and talk about things we've done. But as you can tell by DJ's yawn, we haven't really worked on a lot of things.
I did do the storyboards. So we have quite a few storyboards done, but nothing more has passed since that.
Right. My car was stolen, so I wasn't exactly in the greatest of moods.
But now that I have no job, I'll be able to focus a little bit more on this stuff and maybe finally get to do some TikTok videos.
Oh, crap.
We have a month left until the executive order officially comes into effect, and we're still waiting on the court case on that.
No, the court case has passed.
Yeah, well, the decision on it.
Oh, that has passed.
Yeah, but what was it?
Clearly, you got your update, right?
Yeah, but that's what I'm confused about. Like, there's been no talk on like, oh yeah, no, this has officially been dropped.
Okay, so the court case was about whether or not the app was going to be removed from the stores and updates were going to be paused.
No, the court case was about the executive order. The court case stopped the removal of the apps,
which was part of that executive order.
Yeah, but it just delayed it until a decision was made, and I don't know what the decision was made of.
There's 2 executive orders. The first executive
what the court case was about.
Right, which was about the first executive order. The second executive order is the November 12th one. That's a completely different one. They were talking about the first executive order. Clearly, that's the one that was taken care of. You got your update, meaning that court case was taken care of and said, yeah, you can go ahead and keep the app on the stores and those updates can go through.
Okay, but that still doesn't answer the question of what TikTok's future is.
Right.
Has the ban been dropped?
Probably not, because that comes down to China having to accept whether or not that deal has gone through.
China's not going to accept it. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, then that's
the court case, Becca. The court case was about both executive orders of them saying you can't ban us for this reason. You can't use your power to block our stuff and say we have to sell to you.
Well, Google it.
I have, and there's been no updates because someone got COVID.
Well, apparently they're immune now.
Anyway, that's what I'm annoyed about. We haven't gotten any further news on that. It's like, okay, where do we stand on that? Because for us, we haven't even really started on our Halfwit Sister TikTok stuff. You've been trying to build your channel. I haven't been able to do anything on mine, and we just created the Halfwit TikTok. but we were like, oh, well, if it gets banned, we'll just move over to Instagram. But like
Hmm.
for others, like that's literally their livelihood.
Right.
And it's just like they're in this weird limbo of, I don't know if this app will still be here. So hopefully all my followers will go over to these apps and follow me there. But the interface isn't the same.
Right. Right.
Which kind of just goes back to, that interface is super important. That gameplay is super important sometimes. And if
Hmm.
it's not that, you have to have really good content.
Hmm. Yeah.
So fun times.
Mm. Well, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah. Uh, so I don't know. So, to the people watching, we love that you reach out to us individually, but also make sure to comment down below.
You know they're not gonna do that.
They don't. I'm like my best friend, she gave some feedback. She's like, I want to hear more about your personal stories. That's the interesting bit. I'm like, thank you for telling me, but could you also comment it? So, but yeah, so like, subscribe, comment, hit that bell icon, make sure all your notifications are on so that you can see when our next video comes out, which is, every Friday at 5:15 p.m. I don't know why we can't do it at 5. We did it at 5 the first time, but now it's just like 5:15, 5:45. Those are your choices.
Her time.
My time, yes.
It's for it's for my time.
5:15 Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, okay. Bye.